Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador's Tourism Awareness Month Driving Business in 2021 webinar. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Brenda O'Reilly, and I am the chair of Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador. In my business life, I own and operate Yellow Belly Brewery and Public House, Yellow Belly at the St. John's Airport, and O'Reilly's Irish Newfoundland Pub. Thank you for joining us this morning. Before we get started, I want to respectfully acknowledge the province of Newfoundland and Labrador as the ancestral homeland of many diverse populations of Indigenous people who have contributed to 9,000 years of history, including the Beothuk on the island of Newfoundland. Today, this province is home to diverse populations of Indigenous and other people. We also acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of the Mi'kmaq, Innu, and Inuit. I am pleased today to introduce Eva Gutsche of STEM Marketing and Consulting. Eva brings a wide range of experience and expertise to us today. A solid background in management and sales allows for a practical hands-on approach to be applied to various programs and topics. Eva has been facilitating for many years, working to improve effectiveness with leadership teams, sales departments, and frontline customer service. Welcome, Eva.
Great, super. Thank you so much, Brenda. Nice to be here and nice to see a lot of familiar faces this morning. So let me just get the presentation up and we'll get started. Okay, so the plan this morning is to really take a look at how we can drive some tourism, drive some revenue, create some experiences and get people moving throughout the province this summer. So when we looked at 2020, we reacted last summer. We were able to capture some of that local demand. We're back in that situation this year, and we have learned some things along the way. I've got some great information to share with you as far as what you might be able to expect. When we start looking at, how the pandemic has impacted lives globally, and how some industries have actually shifted and done quite well, how some of that spills over into tourism. So that's the plan for this morning. And so we're going to take a look at what we know and what we've learned. And I have some fantastic recent facts and research. Some of this you may have seen. We're going to now take that information and put it into your lives, put it into your daily world, put it into your marketing plans, and take a look at how that impacts what you're trying to do for summer 2021. Some of the trends that have happened, so interesting. Some of them are pretty obvious to us when we start looking at the outdoors. So there's been a much greater appeal to being outdoors and packaging outdoors and developing experiences outdoors. But there's some other very cool ones too that I'm looking forward to sharing with you. A little bit of what we can expect, and then how you go about capturing some of that local demand. And Craig's going to be monitoring the questions for us and the chat. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to pop them in the chat, and I'm going to check in with Craig off and on. And at the end, we'll have a few minutes left for some open dialogue. So that's the plan. I came across this quote as I was developing the program. If we're meant to stay in one place, we'd have roots instead of feet. And it's this big pent up desire that we all have to travel. And right now we have restrictions around that as to where we can go and who can come in. But regardless, there's still this desire to go out and explore the world around you. There's many parts of the province that you on the call today haven't had a chance to see. And so we do have this incredible product called Newfoundland and Labrador, and we have this desire of people wanting to get out of their homes and wanting to connect with family and friends and wanting to connect with the outdoor spaces. So this is really about taking advantage of all of that. And so some of the things that we know, there's still restrictions as far as travel right now. So it's within the province only. The province is at an alert level 2. Some of the Canadian provinces, we're looking at this, and certainly your Atlantic bubble, there's restrictions as far as where people can travel. I'm actually coming to you from BC this morning. So some provinces, there is limited travel. I'm here with work, so it's a little bit different. So we have restrictions here. We're within certain zones it's allowed. And so everyone's really taking a look at what they have and how you can make that work, still following all the legislation and making sure everybody is safe. We know that the US border is still closed and that if travelers coming into Canada, and this is all about keeping us safe as Canadians and doing our part while still trying to run and manage our businesses. So we've learned to be adaptable, we've learned to be creative. And this morning we'll take a look at how we can apply both those concepts. And so we're looking at, we're looking at Canada. And this is from yesterday, from May 19th. So very current view of what's happening out there. And we're still in, pretty dire straits in some places. Things are shifting, but it's still the pandemic is still is alive, and it still needs to be controlled. And so this is what's happening across the country. And then we take a look at what's happening just the last 7 days. So again, a huge range. Some places seem to have it more in control than others, and certainly under control. Newfoundland and Labrador have done a great job. And so when we start looking at, based on the fact that your province has done a fantastic job of controlling this this situation, but it really comes down to then how do we look at tourism while we've got this going on. And so wanted to share some information with you here, and this is really, will visitors be welcome? And so look at the shift that's happened here. So when we're looking last summer, yes, it was increasing, and then it started decreasing again. So there is concern, and it's related to those slides I just showed you of what's happening in other places. So in here, other communities near me, and then we look at other parts of the province. We've got St. Pierre and Miquelon as well, and other Atlantic provinces. So you're going to see that the biggest focus is I'm okay with other communities. I'm some more okay with other communities and other residents of the province. I'm much less okay when we start bringing in people from other parts of Canada or other parts of the world. So that part is critical as well. It's making sure that there's also a community that is feeling safe while people are traveling, and we all have to work together in this. So this will give us an indication that, yes, if I'm traveling regionally, I'm probably, if people are coming in regionally, I've got a 63% chance based on March 1st of being okay with this. And then in here, it's kind of taking it, would you travel? So one, would others be okay? And if the restrictions were lifted tomorrow, if all of a sudden someone said, we're good, what's going to happen? And so again, we've got, big focus here on other communities near me in other parts of the province. Then perhaps other, and this is with, if you would travel, where you would go, looking at other parts of Canada, Atlantic Canada a little more so, but other parts of Canada, US, and the world, that's not happening, even if things were to shift quite quickly. So our focus is going to be on, really working with, understanding, and attracting that local consumer to explore their own backyard, their own province, and having, and ensuring that they're safe and having attractive experiences available for them. And so, when we start looking here, demand is still building. And so, residents who would plan to travel, if things were lifted tomorrow, can't wait to travel, likely to take a trip in 2021. And really residents planning to spend more vacation time in the province this year. So we have a range as well. And it's all bringing us back to make sense in 2021 to market locally. And so we know that people want to travel. There's going to be a focus, the terms that have come up, the hyper local and local for this summer. So how I would probably, set up my marketing generally, if I'm used to attracting a different market. So I'm used to perhaps attracting the Atlantic Canada market or the Ontario market, what I have available and how I market and what people are looking for is slightly different. So we're sitting here in, late May, and there's a chance to really take a look. Okay, who am I going to go after, and how I'm going to do this? And that safe local resident travel can happen with a key focus on safety, and the trends and information can guide this travel. So that's what I want to share with you this morning. So some of the things that have come up of what's important to people. As we know, the US, though I did read some headlines this morning that it appears some talks are starting. But again, from a marketing perspective, I'm sitting in May of 2021. I have closed borders coming into the province, and I have a business that I need to operate and create some demand and revenue. So again, everything's going back to looking at that resident market. And that desire for that, outdoor spaces, which, you have one of the most beautiful provinces in the world, or places in the world, and really this summer sharing it with locally versus a broader appeal. So let's jump into a little poll here. So I gave you kind of some of the stats. Let's see how the audience this morning views some of those stats. So I'm just going to pop this up. So my question to you is, do you plan to vacation in Newfoundland and Labrador in summer, fall 2021? And my second question is, have you discovered at least one new Newfoundland and Labrador vacation getaway spot that you visited since March of last year? So did you get out and see some new places in the province that you hadn't had a chance to look at before? So I've got a few responses. I'll give you another minute or so here. We've got about 25% of the group has responded, though the answers are coming in fast and furious. So we'll just give a few minutes for that, and then I'll share those results with you. Okay, this is all very encouraging, and it's falling into line as well. Okay, I'll give a few more seconds here for the rest of the group to share their view and to share their input on this. Okay, I'll give you 5 more seconds and then I'll end the poll. Okay. So this is great, actually. So what we have here is, it's actually higher. So the group here is slightly higher than the stats I have, that you are planning on vacationing this summer, which is great news. And this, 28, almost 30%, almost 1/3, slightly under 1/3, have discovered at least one new place since March of 2020. So isn't that fantastic that because of the restrictions, we've actually had this opportunity present that we can go and explore our own backyard. So I hope that that number would actually be, when we do a comparison stat at the end of summer 2021, that more of you get to put in there going, yes, I ended up at this fantastic place that I hadn't been before. So good sign all round. And so let's look some of the stats and information. Some of this I found really interesting. And so when we start looking at consumer sentiment, we start looking at the emotional response we have as Canadians to helping each other. And I mean, I think that's something we've kept hearing about through this pandemic. And so this was interest in recovery research from Destination Canada. And so it's looking at recovery. The domestic market's going to recover first. The domestic market will carry us through, and this is coast to coast. As we're working through this, as the vaccination process continues, as we go back to that normal that we knew. And so by 2022, we can start really expecting that business levels will be close to where we were in 2019. And the big part of the message here, as we want to recover as an industry and as a country, we're expecting some of the other markets, they're not going to come back to 2024. And it keeps getting pushed out. Now we're talking 2025 and 2026. We're looking at that international market that some of you, have the pleasure of attracting every year. That's going to take a little while. And so in here, there is a chance, of course, if the vaccination acceleration continues at the pace it's going now, some of this may shift. But we really, 2022, we're looking at rebounding into domestic. And the big message here that will happen is really encouraging, converting Canadians in 2021 will be critical. So we need those travelers that, and within the province right now is where we're looking. And as borders open up, looking slightly beyond that. But if we can get, and ourselves included in that, if that trip that we took to Europe or somewhere else, if we now take that money we've set aside for that travel or that experience and spent it locally, it will have such a massive impact on this recovery. And so our industry's been hammered. And when we look at many industries, of course, have been impacted, but nothing quite like tourism. So again, messaging out there from a national level is, stay home, support local. And so we take that right down to the provincial level of looking at summer 2021. Craig, I'm just going to check in with you. Any comments or questions we should address at this stage?
No, we're good. You can keep going.
Okay, super. Thanks so much, Craig. Oops. So I have another question here for you. And so this is not so much tourism related, though in some ways it is, but it's really about what have been some of your spending patterns as you've been living through the pandemic. So let me pop that poll up for you. So I'm interested on what purchases you've made since last May. So let me pop this up. And you can tick all that apply. It's multiple choice here. Maybe you're on a big spending spree and bought lots of things.
And even just while people are doing that, Chris Tuck is lamenting that this is the first seminar he's done with you where he hasn't been able to get a chocolate bar.
Okay, Chris, I'll have 2 for you when I get to see you in person. Okay, interesting in here. We've got the entire spectrum covered, so that's fantastic. I'll give you another couple of seconds here to take a look at this and give your responses. Great, I'm going to end the poll in 5 seconds. So the big one, which this is, this is covering all of North America. Whoops. I have a little bit of an error here. Okay, can you see my, I'm hoping you can see the poll results. Okay, so the home improvement material. So people have been sprucing up their homes by fixing it up and buying new furniture. Some of the ones that I found so interesting in here, some of the things like electric toothbrushes and items like that. The big surge in the pet industry. So let's dive into this a little deeper. And how does some of these purchases, how can they help you in marketing business summer 2022? 21, sorry. And so the big focus on home. And so there was, this is from Best Buy. And so they were taking a look at it. They saw lots of increases with people spending more time at home. So 50% increase in stick vacuum cleaners. And so a couple of reasons I thought, wasn't that interesting? So some of it, you're at home more. Cleaning ladies weren't allowed into homes for a while. And so people had to clean their own homes. So a little bit of that impacted this as well. The electric toothbrushes, I thought, how could sales of electric toothbrushes increase 75%? But the ability, initially of people not being able to go to the dentist, of having that, wearing that mask, all of a sudden this whole focus on oral hygiene. So all these kind of side effects of of spending in relation to the pandemic. The indoor fireplaces. So really taking, you're spending more time at home and making it more comfortable, a nicer place to be. And so I love this quote, all journeys have secret destinations of which the traveler is unaware. And that's a little bit of what you'll be creating this summer. And when you're looking at some of the trends, bicycles and a few other things will be part of that journey. And so we looked at, we're Canadians, this is Monero, so the credit card transaction company. So they released their own stats on where Canadians were spending their money. And so golf courses, a huge surge in this. So across the country, so 20% increase. So new golfers, and you start looking at some of the trends are going to impact you this summer. But if you've then made an investment now that you've bought new golf clubs and you've taken golf lessons, the chances are there will be a continued increase in the number of people golfing, even when things shift. So some of this, we start looking at those patterns and how does it impact me? The home improvements, as we mentioned, and the RV, this is where we start taking it from a tourism perspective. So huge increase in RV and trailer sales. So 68% over the same time, the previous year. So this, again, it's a big investment. This is now a lifestyle investment that's not going to go away in months. So it is really looking at that whole need, that consumer need, is that I want to be safe. The RV offers me that. The cleanliness, I can measure that because I did it. I cleaned it. And I'm now be able to go into a place, explore places I haven't been in the outdoors. So it meets all those safety needs. It meets the opportunity to explore and be part of the great outdoors. So how does this impact, perhaps what your offering is? Is there a way to tap into this somehow when we're looking at it short-term and longer term? The swimming pool sales are up and the bicycle sales. So not only have bicycle sales gone up, it's really impacted massive infrastructure globally. And another one here, boat rentals. So people wanting to get in the outdoors. So when I start looking at my own offering, do I have that available? If not, is there someone I can partner with? This is what people are looking to do. So, who are my experienced providers in my community? Can we work together to attract local visitors and offer them appealing product based on the trends and what they're looking for? And so this is the stats that I gave you earlier were broader. They were Canadian and some of them US stats. So in here, this is from the Newfoundland and Labrador Resident Travel Survey done in December. So falls very much in line. Interesting in here, taking the trip within the province, and then some of those other purchases that I mentioned, so the RV, the camping, not quite as high, but it's still in there. The outdoor equipment, such as snowmobile and things like that. The focus on home for sure, focus on fitness. So we're looking at, people having spent more time at home. So, getting them outdoors, getting them active, getting them fit, all these things are important. So the camping, anything related, so this is more of a North American stat, anything related to the outdoors has seen an increase. So everything from coolers to tents to paddle boards. And the fastest category was the camping. So, and what's happened in there too, attracting new markets. So the big increase in that new camper market was actually the millennials. And so we looked at, 1/3 of Canadians have been camping their whole lives. 5% went camping for the first time last year. And 50% of camping households plan to do more of that and taking longer trips. And so we've got the camping in the tent, the whole need for cabin rentals and accommodation and alternate accommodation, that's going to be higher than usual, particularly for your local market. And so, as we mentioned, half of them, started camping for the first time. And millennials, 19% of millennial travel went camping for the first time. and new campers, and they will continue to camp in the future. So we're going to be looking at, product for this summer, and then how is it impacting you when we're looking at that domestic recovery in 2022. And so we're not just looking at camping, we're looking at the RV and tent and the glampers, so that kind of, not quite into the tent, is that glamping product. So, some of the equipment's going to be provided for me because I don't want to make the investment, but I want to actually experience the outdoors in that way. Tied closely in would be cabin rentals. And the whole pet increase. And so looking at this, how does that impact my business? Is my business pet friendly? And so pet industry sales, so this is based on new pet owners, it grew by 5%. And I actually thought that at first was a bit low, but 5% increase in an incredibly mature industry is quite a spike in 1 year. And so how does that, when we're starting to look at, families traveling, does it now include a new dog? So I wanted to share a little clip with you. I mentioned that the whole impact on bike sales, just so interesting what's happened on a global level. So it's a very short little clip from the World Economic Forum, and just how trends then start impacting all kinds of other elements linked to that particular trend or product or service. So I'm just going to stop sharing and I'm going to pop up that clip. Craig, if there's any questions at this point while I'm popping up the clip, that would be great. We can address one or two.
Yeah, no, we're still good. You're being very clear, obviously.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm just hitting the clip here. Great. So, taking a look at that, how does that impact tourism? So are there biking trails in your communities? How are there bike rentals? How does that work? And we looked at some of the reasons, that the whole biking trend kind of really increased during the pandemic. And part of it was safety for travelers getting to and from work. And then looking at, again, trying to stay fit, getting outdoors, lots of reasons, and that investment as well. So now you've got an investment in a bike, you've adopted a new lifestyle. How does that impact tourism down the line? How does that impact it in 2021 and beyond? So just some great questions to kind of take a look at, and then consider how that might impact your tourism offering. Are you going, having some experiences where they can take their own bike, or, work with a local bike shop if that exists. And you're going to send them out on an adventure in your community, that they're outdoors, they're healthy, they're safe, they're getting to explore a new destination and having a new experience. And so some of the, we've seen in 2021, and some of this is in local Canadian markets, sales up 130% just in the first 2 months of the year. And so some of the things that we can expect in general, and some of the concerns. So the safety is number one, but it also impacts other patterns. So I might be more last minute. So that was a trend we started seeing in 2020 because there's uncertainty. So planning far out, anything can change. So a little more focus on last minute. And some of this information is coming from Expedia. So this is based on trends they saw within booking patterns. And I know some of the accommodators here are probably using OTAs or online travel agents. So you may have actually experienced some of that as well. And then how do you plan for that? Or if you're trying to now, operate your business, it's tough, managing your business within most of your bookings coming within 7 days is really challenging. So are there incentives for advanced booking or longer bookings? So that could be an opportunity as well. So looking at the trend, how do I interpret that? And how do I create an opportunity for my business? The alternate accommodation. And so one of the things I found so interesting, looking at the whole online channels. So, a couple of years back, it was often a lot of branded accommodation. And now you're seeing on these OTA sites, you're seeing much more independent, smaller, you're seeing B&Bs, you're seeing houseboats, you're seeing alternate accommodation. And so, how travelers are looking, and that the part of the reason it's all fitting together, because travelers are nervous about making a booking because what if they have to cancel? So that dependency on travel agents and online booking channels, because they are offering more flexibility, if you want to partner with them, that will be part of the consideration. So you're seeing a whole shift in how people are booking, how far in advance, what they're looking for, and how it's being distributed. So how it's being marketed, big shifts in that. So after the call today, just pop on to Expedia or one of the online sites and see for yourself what is being offered differently in the communities where you live and the communities that you promote. The health and safety, and this, going onto your own websites, have you addressed this? This is a huge consideration, because if I see that you've addressed it, I know that you've given it some thought. You've given it thought regardless. We're all living with this, but as a consumer, I really want to be reassured by what you're doing. And so having that available as I'm making my plans. And so the flexibility, it's no longer a nice to have, it is a requirement. And so in here, refundable rates. So having more flexibility in your booking policy is something that consumers looking for based on possibility of changes. Another fantastic quote, we travel not to escape life, but for life not to escape us. And so this, ties into, even though we have restrictions and we've got concerns, we still want to get out there and we want to live our lives as, close to normal as we can, and, adapt to our environments and really explore new places. And so looking at, let's look at capturing some of that local demand. And so, focusing on the needs and the trends. So we've covered a few of them here. So really taking a look at that getaway accommodation. And you don't need to be an accommodator in order to consider getaway accommodation. Look at who's in your community. What do you have to offer? Can you develop any new short-term experiences to tie in with that? And some of this comes down to need. So if, and as I'm working across the country, in different communities, some places the businesses have chosen not to operate. They're going to wait, whatever that happens to be. So your need, I guess the service that you offer, and it's a need of the consumer, is, what do you have in your community? Is everything open as it has been in the past? And if not, is there kind of a stopgap in there? So, Perhaps it's a couple of food and beverage outlets where people would normally go and get their takeaway lunch for the day. So if that's not available, then the regular place you recommend, how are you going to cover that for them? You know the community best. So the people coming into your community, they're relying on you to be their real resource of what I can see and do. Is there any considerations that I need to have or they need to be aware of as they're planning their trip and heading out with their family? And so what may happen for you as well, maybe your market's shifting. So you might find that in the past that you've attracted, for those wanting a getaway, you've attracted mostly couples kind of 40 plus, outdoorsy, soft adventure. And all of a sudden now you're getting inquiries from families. That's really important. Families want to travel together. So are there adaptations you need to make to your offering? You've got a B&B and usually you're not used to having children there. First off, you have to decide, is this a market that's going to be a fit for you? And what modifications might you have to make in order to make sure that everybody's happy and that they're going to get what they need and you have it available for them when they arrive? And so if we know that this family market's an opportunity and we start looking at some of those other opportunities, is really making that clear decision. Who are we going after? And you may decide, we don't really have the infrastructure for that. So I'm going to focus in another area. And that's okay. It's just as you're in the planning stage, is really ask yourself that now. So you're not caught off guard as you're trying now to deliver this experience and people are showing up. So the family and reconnecting and really some innovative stuff happening out there. So, we're still careful of how many people we're connecting with and how do we work that, when we've got groups together. So is there some creative ways that you can do that? Could it be around, maybe instead of one large campfire, you've got a couple of campfires. So there's smaller groups, but people are still kind of together. So we start looking at how do I make minor adaptations based on the shifting market and to ensure that people are safe and comfortable. And then you did talk about all the new toys that people have bought, be it the new camping gear, the new bike, the new trailer, the new RV. What do you have available for that market? And if you don't have something available, and it could be as simple as developing, a cycling route that someone can take through your area, or highlighting some of the places that they can get to with their small van or camper. So maybe looking at your destination a little bit differently and seeing how you can now take the trends, take the demand based on those trends and offer a product or service. So the cottage and cabin rentals, if you have that available, maybe maybe it's a lodge that you've run differently. And now there's an opportunity perhaps to revamp that slightly, that you can attract a different type of market, be it for 1 or 2 months, and then go back to your traditional market at other times. So is there a way I can look at my offering differently based on a different demand? This increase in minimum length of stay. So this has been something that we've seen across the country. So, with the cleaning protocols that you have in your business, they've increased for sure. And so it's difficult at times, when you look at the labor required to do that in-depth cleaning, does a one-night accommodation make sense? And that would be a question you have to ask. And, or are you going to say, we're actually going to extend that? We know people are going to be traveling in the province. I do have the opportunity to convert some of my business into a longer term rental. And so in there, you could also take a look at, based on that, what do I want to do with my cleaning protocols and how does that impact minimum length of stay? What we've seen across the country, or across the world really, is that people are working differently. So not everybody's going to the office every day. This is a trend that was already happening, and it was happening for different reasons. It started to be implemented to meet the safety needs. So it could be that the family's traveling, but one or more family members are going to be working part of the day. So if if your Wi-Fi connectivity is business level quality, that might be one more. It's always probably been an important, but now, really focusing on that, um, stay and play. So, work in the morning and then play in the afternoon. We've seen some fantastic winter offerings across the country, really tapping into that. And you're staying in one place, it's safe. Even if there's limited restaurants, there's an opportunity to cook your own meals. From a value standpoint, from a safety standpoint, it all kind of fits together. And then creating outdoor activities and experiences that are COVID compliant, and really allowing for some safe connections, and focusing on family, friends, and the bubble, having people bring your group together, that's allowed to be. Of course, everything's going to be legislative compliant, but that is going to be a resonate for travelers. It's what they want to do. They want to reconnect, and perhaps you're visiting family in a certain region that you haven't been able to see, and now putting together offerings to stay a few days, and here's other places you can see or do while you're connecting with family. So a combination of a family kind of trip, and then a personal pleasure trip, discovering your own province and place. And so, looking at those, the toys that we talked about, the boats, the watercraft, the desire to be outside. So really ensuring that your offering does connect to that. Is there a way to revamp your current offering to tie in with some of these trends? Is there a way that you can provide inexpensive services? Here's a touring route for you and a packed lunch, and you've got a chance to go out and explore this new place that you've never been. So lots of opportunities in the trends, and from what we understand about the consumer and our local resident. And so really identifying your target market. So in the past, it may have been different, particularly if you were attracting the non-resident market. So what was your market before? Where were they coming from? That US international visitor. So you had them, they're not coming this year. And so who can you replace them with? So taking that down to the type of traveler, is it a family traveler? Is it couples traveling together? Is it high adventure outdoor enthusiasts? Who are they? And then once I've identified them, what offering do I have? What do I need to revamp? Is there a way for me in a cost-effective way, without putting a lot of money or time into it, to make some adjustments that I can speak to that market? So anything that you need to create, partnering is great. You don't have to own it to leverage it. So really going out there, finding partners in your community, putting this experience together that addresses the different markets, addresses the different needs, and addresses the trends. And really, creating these unique visitor experiences, highlighting that place in your destination, or that experience in your destination, to the local market, saying, this is right in your backyard. It is so fantastic. And here's your chance to experience it this summer. So leveraging the trends in the situation. And so when we looked at last year's top 10, so they're listed here. We've got them highlighted, top 10 interests and some anchor activities. And so this is from your provincial stats. This is Newfoundland and Labrador. So we're looking at hiking and walking, natural attractions, camping, and historic sites as the anchor products. And now tying in some of these others with it. So we've got the culinary, the nature parks, and the wildlife viewing, self-guided tours. I mean, that's not that difficult. You're working with your destination marketing organization, seeing what already exists for your communities and highlighting that. Some of the art galleries, museums, and brewers and wineries. How do we bring this together? So you've got some fantastic information to take a look at what people want to do. So making this the anchor product, and then adding on all the things that you have to offer that tie in with that, and other businesses in your community and the region. So that traveler might be coming to your community, but they may be traveling around the region. So how do I, how do I partner with others or highlight other places, even if it's not a direct package partnership, of enticing that visitor to come explore and really having a more robust experience by traveling through the region, but you get your piece of that. And so if everyone's kind of promoting that, everyone's going to get a little piece of that. And so when we start looking, of the relative strengths of the different destinations, so this was your local research as well. And so, what do you have? And then looking at the different regions and how do I put the strengths of the region together in a really appealing overall experience for that visitor? And so there is a possibility, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but if the bubble does open up, there's all of a sudden a new market will open up quite quickly to you. So great news here for you. 1/4 to 1/3 of Maritimers are seriously considering Newfoundland as a travel destination. The local food, drink, hiking, walking, nature attractions are top interests, and you do those so well. They're going to plan trips around natural attractions and historic sites. So fantastic. What do I have in my region that fits right into that? And how do I leverage that and tap into that? Safety, of course, is a top consideration, and visiting friends and family. So that's still a top consideration, but offering other experiences they can add on to that. And so really as we're wrapping here and looking at engaging that your summer 2021 visitor, it comes into right now, right after the call today, is developing that short-term marketing strategy. What do I have? Who can I go after? And how am I going to get that message out? Partner for impact. So it's really about leveraging the partners and other, fantastic offerings, be they natural assets or man-made assets in your community, and how do we put them together? Use some of the data that I covered here, and there's lots more that you can access. So you can reaching out with your new offer, looking at digital marketing. It could be fast and inexpensive, a great way to get your word out quite quickly. Taking a look at your website. So does my website really, are there a few changes I need to make on it right now in order to ensure that that visitor coming this summer is first off safe and that I have appealing offering for them? And so, even highlighting some of the things perhaps differently that I have in my community in order to appeal to that. The social media, getting the word out that way for sure. And then looking at other things that you need to do in order to really take advantage of that local resident market and drive some business for summer 2021. So things are changing quickly. There is strong demand from your local resident market. Consider the trends, incorporate those trends into your offering. Remember right now, health safety is top priority, and we're probably not going to shift out of this as quickly. It's going to take a while. That'll be a priority for a while. And people want to get out of their house and get outdoors and explore your beautiful province. So I will now turn it over to Craig for comments and questions. So thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Eva. Always a lot to think about when you present. And harkening back to Chris's comment, you've given out many a chocolate bar talking about pricing. How should somebody present? Because we know if we're in the resident market, they're a little more price sensitive, perhaps, than the non-resident. Any strategies around how we present that pricing so that that's not the expectation when things go back to normal?
Fantastic, great question, Craig. Make sure I'm on my toes here. So, yeah, so we're looking at that. I mean, some of the information that was done in the research implied that as well. And the visitor is looking for value. And so, a price is a price, but what do I get for that? And so when I start looking at my top priorities, the health and safety, how do you put a price on that? So that's going to be part of my consideration. So I'm looking at the entire offering. Some of the, when I come to Newfoundland and Labrador as a visitor, one of the things I'm always so pleasantly surprised by There's so many fantastic free things to do. So I maybe, yes, I have to pay for my accommodation, be that camping or, a higher end accommodation. But now the value can come to me based on the destination offering. So all these other experiences I get to have that, that it's all encompassing. So I'm not just looking at that one price for the accommodation. I'm looking at the value of the overall experience. So I think it's trying to create additional value for your visitors. It's going to be a more price sensitive market. And so in here, you can, there's also value for you. So it would be way better for me if that visitor stayed the whole week or maybe even 2 weeks. So maybe I start looking at how I bundle my offering differently. That will reduce my staffing costs and my cleaning costs, and in here, so based on that, I can maybe drop the price a little. But at the end of the day, the revenue that I get out of that, I'm going to be able to keep more of it. So there's a few, I hope I've answered in a couple of ways, creating value and looking at what's important to you value-wise as well as what's important to the consumer. Does that answer that, Craig?
Well, it does kind of. I mean, last year was the year for many people to experience things in the province. The number of Facebook posts and selfies from Chapel Arms Walking Trail or Lumsden Beach, it's almost like they were created last year. And
That's
they've been
right.
there a long time. But I was often saying, like, there has to be a way to monetize that. And I guess what you're saying is make that or make your product more affiliated with it to add value to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then that asset is a draw, and you can create value through that.
Yeah, and all these extra things that I'm going to be able to do, I'm paying for the accommodation, and then I have everything else kind of added into that. And, is there ways to work with my partner that we can come up, maybe we each take off a little and we get all these extra visitors, and now I've got a more robust offering. And the consumer's looking at it going, I get all these things included in that.
The next thing I'm going to ask you to do is reflect perhaps on your wide view across the country, because I know you work in many different jurisdictions. One of the things that I heard last year particularly, um, a lot of people were drawn out of the urban areas into the rural areas, and it
Mhm.
was like there was a switch thrown one day, and then everything reverted. Everything slowed down outside, and everything came to the city. Are you seeing that division, I guess, across the country? And are there strategies that you've noticed, to try
Sure.
and spread that pie a little better?
So I haven't seen as much of what you're saying back to the city. I know working with the hotels across the country, the occupancies in the urban centers, many of them are running well below 10%. Um, though the resort areas are up, they're up over their regular. So they're high demand outside of the city. Cabin rentals across the country, by January, they were sold out. You couldn't get a cabin, you couldn't rent a cottage. And so now what was happening in those rural areas or those outdoor areas, those vacation areas, is people were now adapting their offering to fill that gap. And so they were using words like cottage rental and cabin rental, to rent their house, to rent other aspects that of their business that would replace that regular cottage or cabin, highlighting the fact that they had cooking facilities. So I think there's still a big push to get out of the city and really kind of taking a look at that offering, working with some of the lodges that have, as I mentioned earlier, they're now after the family market. They're not after their regular fishermen because they're not coming, particularly those that were heavily dependent on US. There are now family cabin rentals for July, August, and early September. So I hope that answered that, Craig. There is a shift still very much to get out of the city.
Yeah. No, and I think that's an honest reflection of what you've seen.
Mhm.
I fear, Eva, your in person and the classical conditioning of giving chocolate to get involvement may have people not asking questions. Perhaps we should courier some chocolate to people.
Yeah, I know.
Uh,
I haven't figured out how to do that virtually yet, Craig. I have thought about it.
Well, no, but I think in truth, your presentation was very clear. People are really in a situation where they're trying to find any and all opportunity, and the things that you've put forth today are really going to help people understand what they have to do. And you're right, as quick as tomorrow. It's a very uncertain time. Pivot, 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 and uncertainty are the key words that we keep hearing. And with that, I am cognizant of time. We are booked until 11:30. I see 11:28, so I'm going to ask Brenda to come in and have a few concluding comments. Thanks again, Eva.
Thanks so much, Craig.
Thanks, Eva, for your presentation. That was fantastic. Give me, I've been around the industry for a long, long time, and I'm always trying to reinvent myself in my, established businesses that have been struggled like everybody else in the last year, and trying to reinvent myself. But I'm opening a new establishment in June, so he gave me a lot of food for thought, and I know that experiences and partnering up is really the answer to help us all get through this. So thank you very much for that, and thank you to the Hospitality and Elsta team for organizing the event today. There are more great learning and information sessions booked for the next week, including the Tourism Excellence Awards ceremony and the Industry Fun Night. So please check them all out at hnl.ca. And also, please feel free to reach out to any member of the hospitality team if you would like any further information on what was discussed this morning, or any of your other concerns. So that's it for me. Goodbye, everyone. Enjoy the sun. 24th May weekend. Can't believe it. Have a great long weekend, everyone. Take care.